Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Speakeasy, Daily Conversations. I'm Olivia, and I'm really excited about today's episode because I feel like this is one of those topics that can completely change the way you speak English in real life, especially when you're trying to have longer and more natural conversations with people.
And I'm Ethan. Yes, today's topic is not just about speaking English correctly, but about something much more important, which is how to keep a conversation going without feeling stuck, without running out of ideas, and without feeling awkward when there's a pause or silence.
Because if we're being honest, a lot of learners actually know enough English to communicate, but they struggle when it comes to maintaining a conversation. They might be able to answer a question, but after that, they don't know what to say next, and the conversation just stops.
Exactly. And that moment when the conversation suddenly stops can feel very uncomfortable. You might start overthinking, wondering if you said something wrong or if the other person is losing interest. And that pressure makes it even harder to continue speaking naturally.
I've experienced that before, especially when I was still building my confidence in English. I remember having conversations where everything felt fine at the beginning, but after a few exchanges, I didn't know how to continue, and there was this silence that made me feel very self-conscious.
Yes, and I think that's something very common. But the good news is that keeping a conversation going is actually a skill that you can learn. It's not about knowing more vocabulary or using complicated grammar. It's about understanding how conversations naturally flow.
That's such an important point. It's not about being perfect. It's about being responsive, expressive, and connected to the conversation.
Exactly. So today, we're going to explore this deeply. We're going to show you how to respond in a more natural way, how to expand your ideas, how to show interest, and how to keep the conversation moving without feeling forced.
So just relax. Imagine yourself in these situations and try to notice how the conversation develops naturally. Ethan, let me start with a simple situation. Imagine someone asks you, "How was your day?" What usually happens in that moment?
I think for many learners, the first instinct is to give a very short answer, like it was good or it was okay, and then they stop there. And the problem with that kind of response is that it doesn't give the other person anything to continue with.
Yes, it's like closing the door instead of opening it. The conversation doesn't have anywhere to go.
Exactly. But if you think about it, that question is actually an opportunity. Instead of giving a short answer, you can turn it into something more meaningful by adding a bit of detail and a bit of personal experience.
For example, instead of saying, "It was good," you could say something like, "It was actually quite busy. I had a lot of things to finish today, and I felt a bit tired at some point, but I also felt satisfied because I managed to complete most of my tasks."
Yes, and that kind of answer changes everything. Now the other person can ask you about your work, your tasks, or how you felt. It creates space for the conversation to grow.
And I think what makes it effective is not just the length, but the feeling behind it. You're not just giving information, you're sharing your experience.
That's exactly right. Conversation is not about giving short facts. It's about sharing pieces of your life, even in small ways.
Let's imagine another situation. Someone asks you, "What did you do today?" How would you respond in a more natural way?
Instead of giving a simple answer, like, I studied, I would try to describe my day in a slightly more detailed way. I might say something like, I spent most of my day studying, especially in the morning. I was focusing on improving my speaking, and I tried to practice by listening to conversations and repeating them. In the afternoon, I felt a bit tired, so I took a short break before continuing again later.
That's a really good example. It feels very natural, and it gives a clear picture of your day. And again, it gives the other person something to respond to.
Yes, and I think that's the key idea here. You don't need to say something complicated. You just need to say a little bit more than the minimum.
I like that. A little bit more than the minimum. That's a very practical way to think about it. Now let's talk about another important part of conversation, which is asking questions. Because conversation is not just about answering, right?
Exactly. If you only answer questions and never ask anything back, the conversation can feel one-sided, like an interview, and that can become tiring for both people.
So, how can we make it more balanced?
One simple way is to respond and then ask a related question. For example, if someone says, "I had a really busy day," you can respond with empathy and then ask something like, "That sounds quite intense. What made your day so busy?"
That's very natural. It shows that you are listening and that you care about what the other person is saying.
Yes, and it encourages the other person to continue speaking. It keeps the conversation alive.
I think this is something that many learners don't practice enough. They focus on answering correctly, but they forget to show curiosity.
And curiosity is what makes conversations interesting. When you are genuinely interested in what the other person is saying, the conversation flows more naturally.
Let's go a bit deeper. What about reacting emotionally? How important is that?
I think it's very important. If someone shares something with you and you respond in a very neutral or flat way, the conversation can feel disconnected. But if you react emotionally, even in a simple way, it creates a stronger connection.
For example, if someone says, "I didn't sleep well last night," instead of just saying, "Okay," you could say, "That sounds really exhausting. Did something keep you awake?"
Yes, and that kind of response shows empathy. It makes the other person feel understood.
And it also encourages them to continue sharing.
Exactly. Conversation is not just about words, it's about connection.
Let's imagine a slightly more personal situation. Someone tells you they feel stuck in their English learning. How would you respond?
I would try to respond in a supportive and understanding way. I might say something like, "I understand how you feel. Learning a language can be challenging, especially when you feel like you're not making progress. But I think it's important to remember that progress is not always visible immediately. Sometimes you are improving, even if you don't notice it right away."
That's a very thoughtful response. It's not just answering, it's connecting on an emotional level.
Yes, and I might also share my own experience. For example, I've had similar moments where I felt stuck, but over time I realized that consistency and practice made a big difference.
That's a powerful strategy. When you share your own experience, the conversation becomes more balanced and more meaningful. Now let's talk about something that many people are afraid of: silence. What happens when the conversation suddenly stops?
I think many people panic in that moment. They feel like something went wrong. But actually, silence is a natural part of conversation. It doesn't always mean that the conversation is over.
That's true. Sometimes it's just a pause.
Exactly. And instead of feeling uncomfortable, you can use that moment to introduce a new topic or ask a simple question. For example, you could say, "By the way, what have you been working on recently?" Or, "Have you been busy these days?"
Those are very natural ways to restart the conversation.
Yes, and they don't require complicated language. They just require awareness and confidence.
Let's imagine a full conversation now, where everything we talked about comes together.
Okay.
Hey, how have you been lately?
I've been quite busy recently. I've had a lot of responsibilities, and I've been trying to manage everything at the same time. It's been a bit challenging, but also a good learning experience.
That sounds like a lot to handle. What kind of responsibilities have you been focusing on?
Mostly work-related tasks that require a lot of attention and patience. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, but I'm trying to stay organized and take things step by step.
That makes sense. I think when things start to feel overwhelming, breaking them into smaller steps can really help. I've had a similar experience recently where I felt like I had too many things to do at once, and it was difficult to stay focused.
Yes, exactly. And I think in those moments, it's important to remind yourself to slow down and not try to do everything at once.
I completely agree. And also, taking short breaks can make a big difference. It helps you reset your mind and come back with more energy.
That's very true. I've been trying to do that more often, and I've noticed that it helps me stay more consistent.
Before we end, I want to reflect on something important.
Yes.
Keeping a conversation going is not about saying something perfect.
It's about being present.
It's about listening.
It's about responding in a real way.
And it's about sharing a little bit more each time. So, next time you speak English,
Don't stop at short answers.
Don't be afraid of silence.
Don't overthink every sentence.
Just stay in the conversation.
And keep it going.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Keep practicing, keep speaking, and most importantly, keep connecting.
And remember,
You don't need perfect English to have a real conversation.
you just need to keep it alive.
See you in the next episode of Speak Easy, Daily Conversations.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.